sharing how much you made at your last job / current job, that's actually a question that has been made illegal in many states in the US, especially the major ones. I'm gonna blindside you with a quick topic.
Okay.
Which you didn't know I was gonna bring up, which is happy almost anniversary. Yay!
Can we kiss on? Oh, it's okay.
Tomorrow is our 13 years together. How do you feel?
So Gerta has an Instagram post queued up to share about our anniversary, and she read it to me beforehand, and I was like almost bawling by the end.
I definitely cried.
Yeah, there were lots of tears. We had a little anniversary date earlier today. It's really nice when you have your own business so that you could actually take the
Sneak
time
out. During business hours.
It's like don't tell
my clients.
I always think back to the very first moment when we met each other. It was almost 17, 18 years ago when we first met.
We met 2009, September. I have a thing for dates, especially important dates. I think the first time that we were aware of that we crossed paths literally was in this tiny little pathway on Wellesley College's campus, which is where I went to college and Alex's sister went to college.
I always think back to that moment and I want to talk to that college Alex. I want to nudge him and be like, hey, do you realize that that's your future wife? I always I kind of revisit that memory.
What would happen if you could do that? If you're that little kid, college kid, and you're like, wait, that's my future wife.
I feel like I actually do that in therapy. Because I talk to my younger selves from my past memories, which that's a whole...
Yeah, maybe we can talk about that
at some point. Yeah, because there's so many cool things there.
And your therapy type is IFS, internal family systems. Reminds me the story I tell a lot of our friends where maybe a year into us dating. And again, we started dating so young in college. I think we were maybe 22 and 23. And not even a year, 6 months in, he's like, just so you know, this is not headed towards marriage. And I was 22. I'm like, cool.
Cool. All right, cool. Thanks, bro. Okay, so I actually don't remember that conversation.
I remember it so well because I'm like, why is he even mentioning this? I wasn't even thinking about marriage. I was thinking about forever love. And I really disaggregate these two concepts. But it's so funny you set me down.
I'm thinking about how we also keep track of our month anniversaries.
Sometimes you'll come to me and you're like, happy 100. It's more than 120 now, right? Because they're in the 13 year. So happy 130 something month anniversary. It's so cute.
But, every day is a celebration.
Yes. When you're together all the time and for so long, I do want a lot of fun dates, but it's also, we could do that tomorrow. And it's such a scope creep.
Before we get into negotiations content, we wanted to chat about things that happened in previous episodes. High level is that in the very first episode of the podcast that we recorded, there was kind of an incident or something that Gerta felt off about that she wanted to address with me. And as soon as we finished that episode, we recorded a second episode where we addressed that thing that Gerta wanted to talk about. She gave me live feedback. It was actually a really, really good example of how Gerta and I worked through our challenges when we are co-founders in this business. But then afterwards, we realized that the mic was muted.
I think it's during. Because you can see your face. I think we will cut this in such a way that people can see.
Yeah.
I was talking, giving you feedback, and you guys, holy... oh my gosh, the mic I think is off, and you were. I think it's hilarious. So maybe we can.
Yeah, I completely zoned out.
Yeah.
At the time, and so I just kind of looked at blank, sort of freaked out.
The funny thing is that for both episodes, both the one where we had the actual quote unquote issue, which is very minor, and then the second episode where we're talking about the previous episode. In both of those, I think you don't realize that we can cut the episode.
Yeah.
If you think the mic is off, we can just hold on. Let's check if the mic is
off. Yeah. These are all the learnings as we are getting more used to filming podcast episodes.
Yeah. But I think it's adorable how you see the world as a place where you just follow the rules and you follow the structure. And for me, I want to poke and question everything around it.
Yeah. So we wanted to talk about the thing that was muted and recap that because we actually feel that it was very valuable. So in that first episode, when we were doing the intro, we were talking about various things in our lives. Goethe was very excited to share about how she is very involved in a lot of different communities. You're a community builder at heart. You love bringing people together. You love being surrounded by the people you love, your chosen family, all these things. And while she was sharing that, Goethe felt that I wasn't necessarily being very present or supportive or really engaging with you. I occurred to you as like very impatient and just like, okay, let's just move on.
Yeah.
What was happening on my end was I felt like the intro was taking a really long time. I was very eager to get to the negotiations content. It came across, and it actually was, where I felt like I was being very dismissive of something that you actually really care about. So as soon as we finished recording that first podcast episode, the first thing Goethe says to me, she's like, I have a turtle. And so maybe at this point, it might be good to explain what turtles are.
Yeah, I think we've explained it in a previous episode, but it's good to recap. I came up with the concept of a turtle that we use a lot in our relationship because I'm a very anxious person and I'm also pretty direct, and I want to address things head on and not have to think about it. Let's address it and be done with it. And I wanted to encourage Alex early on in our relationship to address things, think of them as little turtles where you squash them and they're done, as opposed to if you let things fester, they turn into ninja turtles, which can damage you and your relationship. I think we came up with this very early on in our relationship, maybe year 1. After the episode, I'm like, I have a turtle. I felt you weren't supportive and you weren't engaged. And I felt unsupported. I statements. I felt unsupported and as if you weren't engaged. And then you said you were worried that we were dragging on. The intro was too long. And also, do we want to talk about Fami here?
Yeah, let's do that as well. Yeah.
So on that episode, we had introduced Fami, our company mascot, which the dog we're dog sitting Muji has just thrown away. Yeah. Actually, I'm going to go grab it.
Yeah. While Goethe goes to grab that, I can explain. So Fami is our company mascot. We got Fami probably the first week of our business, and Fami's pronouns are they, them, because we realized that we don't have a lot of non-binary friends in our lives. We wanted an opportunity to make it feel natural for us to practice, because there's that one show, Billions, that we used to really like. There was a non-binary character there, and we always kept referring to them as her, and then we would keep catching ourselves misgendering. So we took it as an opportunity. Hey, let's have Fami be non-binary.
So we get used to referring to someone in they, them. And it was very helpful. Yeah. However, as I'm mentioning this in the episode, I think you were a little worried that it was maybe too political.
Right. And just, I then really got in my head in that first, when we were doing that, which is part of the reason why I was so distracted and kind of dismissive and sort of, let's just move on to the negotiations content. Because I was like, well, are we proactively just wading into kind of like culture war stuff or things that people have very, very strong opinions about? Like, why do we even want to get near that?
Yeah.
Especially on episode 1 of this podcast out the gate. But then Garrett and I talked about it even more and said, this is actually who we are. This is genuinely...
We are not saying this to be like controversial. We're just sharing something that we did a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And we also found out that one of our teammates' partner is trans. Now, it's even more important for us to share our support for trans rights.
So that was one of the reasons why I was very distracted. Also felt like it was dragging on. But it was also episode 1, and I didn't even really think in post-edit we can cut things out. Once Goethe addressed that with me, that turtle, I felt really bad, and I apologize to you because the community building and all these things, it is something that you're very passionate about, and you probably felt like I was not showing support and not caring about something that is really important to you. So we addressed it right away. We had filmed that interaction live, but then unfortunately it was muted.
Yeah. I want to give you credit for creating such a safe space for me to share with you my experience, which is, hey, I'm feeling like you're not supportive of me going through my long list of all the communities I've founded or co-led. And I think you make me feel so comfortable sharing that type of experience or feedback. Another thing is that I trust you so much, and it's more my feedback and my sharing my experience. It's more curiosity on what's going on. What are you thinking? Because I know you are a very supportive person. And I wonder what was happening. And you're like, well, I was worried it was dragging on. Yeah, but we could always cut. And I forgot that sometimes you think layers.
Structuring hard. Yeah, I mean, having been in the military, it's like you follow orders, you do what you're told, you execute the mission as it was told to you, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So people will never hear that raw conversation, but I'm sure we'll have future ones. Cool. Should we move on to a negotiations topic?
Let's do it.
Let me make it a little drum rolly. How do I sound a little like millennial BuzzFeed title?
The one trait.
The one trait. There's one trait that makes you an excellent techie, but really hurts your negotiation.
But a horrible negotiator.
Horrible negotiator. Can you guess what that is? And I would love for people to guess right now in their minds. What is something that makes you an incredible tech employee?
Not even tech employee, but just an incredible,
employee.
Like a very good employee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it doesn't really apply to like, I don't know. I was going to say nurses. No, it applies to nurses.
No, it's just a pretty universal important trait.
Universal important trait.
In the work environment, yeah.
Yes. But it does hurt your negotiations. Not .com. It only hurts your negotiations. It does not hurt your negotiations.com.
Indeed.
Yeah, I'm curious what people are guessing.
Wait, for people who don't realize, yournegotiations.com is the name of our business.
Yes.
I think some people maybe are watching this, they don't realize that.
Yeah, okay.
There will be many puns like that.
Oh, Alex loves puns.
Yeah,
yes.
all the really bad puns. Yeah.
So what is that one thing that it makes you an amazing, it's like a puzzle. I wish we didn't have to reveal it right now. I wish we would get some answers.
Yeah, there are probably some listeners who are just like, "Oh my god, just get to the board. What is it?" You know?
Okay. Or what if we share it on the next episode?
No, I want to tell them out. We do not want to wait till the next episode.
Why don't we jump to the next topic right now and then let people watch this first, comment with their thoughts, and then we reveal it in the next.
Nah, that's like I think that is like not a fair cliffhanger to leave people on. I think let's just get into it.
Okay, sounds good. So the one trait.
Should I say it?
Okay.
Okay, so
drum roll.
So to recap, the one trait that makes you a really good employee or a good worker in the corporate professional world, but a very bad negotiator, is over communication.
What?
So being an over communicator. You knew what it was. Would you like to get into why?
I got the giggle, so can you get into why?
Yeah. As a very high level, the reason why being an over communicator is good in the work setting, but not in negotiations, is because in negotiations, you can actually hurt yourself by over communicating or sharing too much information. Whereas in the work context, it is very good to be over communicating, making sure all the various teams, all your cross-functional partners, everyone that you're working with is aligned with the plan and knows what's going on. I mean, Gerta and I have worked in tech at VC, and so that this is very close to our world. We work with a lot of people, a lot of clients who are product managers, especially engineering managers. They're people managers. They manage entire teams, and they often work with a lot of cross-functional teams. So if you're an engineer, you're working with product, design, data science. There's so much coordination.
Yeah, and same thing with products.
Yeah, especially PMs. Yeah, product marketing managers, product managers, all that. Something that's very valued, especially at tech companies, is for you to be able to communicate very well, over communicate, and make sure everyone is in the know and is aligned with whatever the plan or the whole project is. We often have lots of clients who are naturally inclined to want to over communicate. They think that is actually going to help their case. It may even make them look good to a company when they are negotiating with them. Look, if I'm an over communicator, then they will realize that I will also be able to do that well in the job.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the negotiations part, how to increase your compensation when you're negotiating with the company, You definitely don't want to just default to over communication.
And not just compensation, but anything you're negotiating, you don't want to over communicate. I think the other thing is that, especially in tech, it's so fast paced that things are moving super quickly. And especially if you use Slack and all that, text and everything is moving so quickly. So you need to make sure everyone's aligned, everyone knows what's happening and what they need to do. It's not only a bonus, but it's such a key quality to look for as you're hiring people in tech or as you're applying for tech roles. And then in negotiations, you could be hurting your leverage. And a lot of people share also because they want to seem generous and they want to seem collaborative. So they're like, oh, yes, I made this much at my last job. I would love to move from San Francisco to New York at one point in my life. And my wife is thinking of quitting her job. And all of this could hurt your job offer, whether you get a job offer to begin with, as well as how much you get as an initial offer and then how much they increase it eventually. For example, sharing how much you made at your last job / current job, that's actually a question that has been made illegal in many states in the US, especially the major ones. I want to say New York, Massachusetts, California. It's actually illegal for employers to ask you about your salary history, how much you made your previous job, current job. And so for you to voluntarily share that, you're already hurting your chances of getting a good deal. People have advocated for this to be made illegal, and you are doing it anyway. I assume it's pretty obvious, but the reason is that you should be making whatever is fair for what the company is hiring you for, not based on what you made previously.
We actually had a recent client. He was interviewing with multiple companies, and he was explaining to me how the conversations have taken place so far. And he told me with one of the companies that they asked him, hey, what did you make in your last job? Which, by the way, is illegal, I'm pretty sure.
I think I overheard you say to him, hey, by the way, it's illegal.
Yeah, you were in the other room. Yeah. I was on that call. He said that he shared with them, I want to be fully transparent with you. This is actually what I made in my last job. And I think he may have had a prior relationship with this company. He knew one of the founders or whatnot. He thought that by sharing that, he was showing that he was cooperative.
Right.
He's fully transparent. He's an employee who has nothing to hide. He's just going to bring everything to the table. Well, now the employer knows how much he made previously. They're going to use that as a data point, as a benchmark to anchor him to a certain probably likely lower comp if they're going to get to the initial offer stage with him, right? Another side note on that is, so that's likely an illegal question that an employer should not be asking, but you as the candidate, it's best for you to just assume best intent. You don't want to assume that they are trying to be malicious, because if you assume best intent, it allows the other side to save face. And it also helps with your own mindset and demeanor that you're not going to be shaken by something potentially going unexpectedly, or if you felt like something bad was happening. You always want to be maintaining professionalism, being very cordial, showing excitement and enthusiasm for the role.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. You also want to assume best intent, not only to keep the vibe positive, but also because they might not actually know. So the Massachusetts law was passed very recently, and it goes into effect, I want to say July of this year. So it's still very new in some major states. So the employer might not know, or they may have been asked by their managers to ask. So we don't know what's happening on their end. You want to assume best intent, keep the vibe very positive. Do not call them out on it. Don't be like, hey, I heard this is illegal for you to ask. That will create a very hostile dynamic. On the other hand, you touched on something very interesting, which is people share this because they think they're showing collaboration and they're being transparent and generous. You can still be very positive and collaborative in negotiations without showing your hand. Remember that negotiations are like a game of cards. You can't really play or win if you show your hand. If we all just showed our hands, the company will show they can pay you millions, but they're not gonna. So because they're not gonna show you that they can pay you millions, you should also not show them that you're willing to take a certain amount. You're dying to make a joke. I, I could see.
I had one.
But you lost it.
I lost it. If it comes back to me, I'll interrupt you with the joke. Yeah, okay, I'm just kidding.
Okay, feel free not to. So this is the game, because if the company shows you their hand, they can pay you millions. They're not going to pay you millions. So you also should not share that you're willing to take less than a certain amount. You're not being generous and collaborative by showing your hand. To me, actually, when I've been on the hiring end of this, it's been a bit of a flag when someone proactively shares their salary history. They come across as naive. They don't know such a basic business skill to not share something that's going to hurt their compensation and their negotiation leverage. I wouldn't trust them to know how to do important business deals. And I mentioned this before. I've negotiated every job offer I've had, and my toughest manager that I've ever had, she put me on some very exciting business deals because I had demonstrated through my job offer negotiations that I know how to handle these difficult conversations and how to manage these situations with professionalism and collaboration and good communication. I was very excited to get those deals, and she specifically said, I'm putting you on these because you're a good negotiator. So not only are you not showing necessarily generosity or collaboration, but you're probably shooting yourself in the foot if you are proactively sharing an information that the company should not have. Again, there have been people who have advocated for you to not have to share that. Honor their fight for you.
I remember when you've told me how when you're interviewing candidates and they proactively share their past compensation, inside you're just like, no.
Oh, why did you do that? Yeah. I actually told them later after they were hired, hey, I remember you sharing this. Don't do that in the future. This is why, and all that. Yeah. To pick back up on a previous thread, you can still show collaboration, generosity, positivity in negotiations without showing your hand. So you can say, thank you so much for working with me on this. You've been so wonderful to work with. I don't know, thank you for this offer. I'm so excited about the role, the team. I would be honored to work with this hiring manager. There's so many ways to show that goodwill and excitement without actually giving numbers, which, as we've said again and again, is not good for your negotiation leverage.
One question that we often get is, how do you show collaboration if the employer is asking you for something and they're really, really pressing you, and I, as the candidate, I'm trying to not share my leverage, such as my number or range. But what if it gets to a point where an employer has asked 3 or 4 times and they even say, hey, look, we are not able to extend an offer without you agreeing to these numbers on this verbal offer. And we actually just have a policy where we can't move forward. So if you're not going to share that, we're basically at an impasse. So what if the recruiter gets aggressive in that way? Like, what would you recommend is a way to respond such that you are still showing that you're collaborative, you care about the relationship and all that?
This could be a topic for another full episode, but the secret ingredient here is to not have a number in mind. Hopefully I can convince you that you actually don't have a number in mind with a following proof. Let's say you have a number in mind. You're like, I need to make at least 200K. Then if I ask you, well, would you not accept 190 if they give you a 10K sign-on bonus? It's not repeated, it's not salary, but at least for the first year, you're at 200. Or would you not take 180 if the commute is amazing, it's your dream job, and their 401K is the best you've seen? Or would you not take 185 if they have free food and, I don't know, you can work fully remotely? There's so many levers you can, or variables that go into the decision of accepting a job offer. Just some I can think of. Of course, there's compensation, but there's start date, there's vacation days, there's 401k matching levels, there's healthcare benefits. How good are they? Free food, work from home days, home office reimbursement, travel reimbursement, accessibility to leadership, how accessible they are. There's so much that goes into a decision that if I give you the absolute best combination of everything else and a slightly lower compensation, I feel like you would accept something lower, versus I can give you the absolute worst option of all of these and then an amazing compensation. or higher than your expectations, then maybe you wouldn't take it, or maybe you would. This is why you don't have a specific number. Once you realize that yourself, you're like, oh, actually, yeah, for the right job and for the right other ingredients, I could accept a different number. You just communicate that to the recruiter. Hey, I genuinely don't have a number that will make or break the offer. You tell me what you're seeing in the market.
Yeah, I see. So you basically want to convince
yourself first.
The actual reality that it doesn't even make sense for you to have a number because of all these things. I think another aspect to that is if you were to share your number, let's say early in the process, you're halfway through the interview process, and let's say you get an offer from another company that's much, much higher than the number that you had given. Well, your own personal calculus as to what you're willing to accept has completely changed, which invalidates what you have shared before. And so given that those things can happen throughout the process, the whole interview and the job search process is very dynamic. It actually doesn't even make sense for you to share a number because anything can change at any moment.
Exactly. So, and you can just say that. Another thing people ask at this point, well, what if the company lowballs me? So I think people are very scared. And the reason why they want to give a number is, well, am I going to waste my time with them? What if I want 200, but they can't afford me? Am I just wasting my time with them? Or what if they lowball me and I can't get out of it? I want to reassure you that you can get out of it. Every open seat has a budget. They have a maximum budget. And so regardless of whether they start very low for you, you can climb up to it because it's available. There's no reason why they can't go up if you play the game right. And it's a complex game. This is literally why we are in business, to help you get as close to the top of the budget as possible. But I wouldn't worry about them lowballing you and then you not being able to climb out of it. But the other concern is fair, which is, am I going to waste my time? I think the answer to that is that this is a very personal decision because, for example, if this company is one of your dream companies or dream jobs, I would personally, and this is why it's a personal decision, I would personally take the chance to go through all the interviews and the negotiations to see where we land if this is my dream job. There's number one. Number two is you could ask them. Again, a lot of states have a law where they have to post a salary range on the job description. Many states have this now. First, I want to say don't trust that. For anyone who knows anything about negotiations, they wouldn't put their real budget there, but it could give you some sense of their budget roughly. Or you can just straight up ask them, hey, what's the compensation range here or your budget? And that could give you some sort of idea. It's not accurate. I can almost guarantee that it's not accurate.
It's pretty arbitrary, right?
It's pretty arbitrary, but it does give you some data points. Like how far off you could be, right? And the reason why it's not the best data point is that we have helped clients increase their total comp. Our best performing client, we helped them increase their total comp by 42%. And so imagine if they had
42%
over above the initial offer. So imagine if their initial offer range was put on the job description and they wanted a bit more and they're like, oh, I shouldn't even apply. But, they applied and they got 42% more.
Yeah, it's pretty common for many of our clients. The final offer that we help them negotiate is actually, it falls above the range.
Above the range that was posted.
It happens all the time.
It happens all the time. But this is why this is a personal decision. We cannot guarantee any results, obviously. We don't know what the company's true budget is. No one can ever know unless you're on that team, unless you're the recruiter and maybe the compensation team. And so because we cannot guarantee, you're kind of rolling the dice a little bit as to what the final compensation will be. And that's why this is a personal decision. Do you have enough time and resources to go through this entire process without truly knowing? Those are some things to think about.
Yeah.
Should we wrap it up?
Yeah, I think that's a good place to stop.
A lot of unfinished threads, but more for the future.
Yeah. We will close those threads eventually in future episodes. Hopefully you found that. When I say you, the listener, I still don't exactly know how to address people. Where do I even look? So please forgive us as we work out those things. But we'll wrap it there, and we will see you next time.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.